Welcome to Knocking to 10, the podcast for go-to-market leaders scaling from 0 to 10 million and beyond. I'm John DiLoreto, founder of Knock2. Each week, I sit down with founders, operators, and go-to-market leaders to pull back the curtain on what's fueled their success and the hard-earned lessons they've picked up along the way. New episodes drop weekly. Subscribe to follow along. Welcome back to Knocking to 10, real stories from go-to-market leaders growing SaaS from 0 to 10 million and beyond. Today's guest, Daniel Zarick, helped close Uber at Twilio and is now building Arrows, a bold all-in-one bet on HubSpot and how modern teams drive customer momentum through sales rooms. Daniel is the co-founder and CEO of Arrows, and he's one of the most thoughtful product and go-to-market minds out there, and he's not afraid to break with popular opinion. So Daniel, excited to dig in and have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. That's far too kind. I wouldn't say any of that except for the CEO part. Maybe that's true.
All right. So Daniel, take me back. Your background is in product management. Why sales rooms? Why build there?
We got pulled into it by our customers. We were actually building a customer onboarding tool first. And we kind of expanded and we were looking for broader and broader use cases. And we had a sales use case, but then we really focused down on customer onboarding and customer onboarding specifically for companies who use HubSpot. But as soon as you start digging in and building stuff for onboarding teams and success teams, you realize that a decent number of the problems actually start in sales. Sales handoffs are a problem. Are we selling the right people? Are we gathering the right information? And so our customers kept kind of wanting to pull arrows from onboarding into sales. And we felt we had a unique point of view for how to build a sales room product. And we think it's an interesting category that has a potential to be very big. And so that's why we built there.
What are some of the sort of key problems that occurred in onboarding and kind of bringing customers on that you were grappling with?
Yeah, I mean, so often onboarding, for Arrows ourselves, for customers that are doing poorly, for a lot of our customers, it's really like a momentum problem. If you can really get your team aligned on putting the right tasks and the right things in front of the customer and knowing what you need them to do early on in that first week or two is really critical. People who do the things you want them to do in that first week or two are the people who stick around. They're the ones who activate. They're the ones who stick around for multiple years. So that momentum, that first stage is really critical. And, you and I have both been around a while. Like, think of when you've signed on with a new agency or new product and you pay on a Wednesday. They send you the kickoff email or the intro email on Friday, maybe Thursday if you're lucky. There's no kickoff times until Tuesday, Wednesday next week. You do nothing for the first week. Yep. And so it's really a momentum building thing. So if you can carry all the momentum from sales into the handoff, into the first task and onboarding, customers carry all that excitement from sales into activating and being happy customers.
Yeah. And is there a particular type of customer where this tends to be really important or critical? Is it more complex products? Is it products that involve large teams? What do you typically see where this becomes really critical?
Honestly, anybody with a sales pipeline. If you have a sales pipeline, you have closed one, nobody magically gets their results on the other end of that. It's not like buying a product on Amazon. It doesn't show up in a day. You have to do something, whether it's your customer needs to set you up to go do a service. I need to go set up this product and integrate it. It requires something. And so I think the misnomer, the confusion a lot of people have had around Arrows, especially the onboarding tools, they're like, oh, our process isn't very complicated. But I can guarantee if you go talk to their customers are like, yeah, you think this is simple. I'm not thinking about you. Yeah. I just want the outcome. Tell me what I need to do to make this go faster.
Yeah, fascinating. So historically, this was more of an onboarding. So you'd be working with operations teams, maybe COOs, heads of onboarding, heads of success, things of that nature.
Exactly.
Did you often have even sales leaders coming to you, those that were maybe thinking a bit more about, hey, is this creating churn if we don't onboard correctly? Are we going to get clawbacks for sales reps? When did sort of the sales leaders start to emerge as an option?
Yeah, you're spot on there. Churn was a problem, especially early churn, right? The first 30, 60, 90 days, whether we sold the wrong people, we didn't activate, we closed this 6-figure deal and our team dropped the ball. Nobody knew what was going on. I can't see what's happening. There's also been this trend where, some CS teams have rolled up into CROs and VPs of revenue. So they'd kind of care, but really it was like, hey, we're doing a great job or we're trying to, but we are swimming upstream when we're losing deals on the other side of the fence.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a few guests over the past few weeks who perhaps weren't as kind to the concept or the term of sales rooms. And I think it was more under the aspect of, I don't need another portal or dashboard to log in. You're making more work for me. Now, obviously, your business believes that these are tools that are going to set you up for success and actually ensure that you have lower churn, your clients are happier, et cetera. Talk to me a little bit about some of the data or insights you have on your end that supports this position.
I'll actually take it a different way. I think they're right in a way, right? Like they are right. Nobody wants a sales room. Nobody wants another thing to log into. And it actually points to the fact that this is like more of a product like problem in the space. Now, that doesn't mean the type of thing we think this should be. You and I were talking about sales rooms aren't really like a great category name either. Like nobody wants a sales room. It's who's it for? What's it serving? It's not a blocker to me getting a deal done like maybe CPQ or contracting is, right? I need this done. And so for us, the reason we've built into the sales room categories, we see a vision for this being a truly worthwhile collaborative space where buyers and sellers collaborate with each other, right? Where they work together to get the deal done, to evaluate properly, to onboard fast. Like everything should be aligned and working well towards a shared outcome. And so that is like a different perspective. We're coming at this from a product perspective, not, sales leaders building a product, for our team to kind of sell more effectively. We really have some strong points of view of what this process could look like. And so we look around and go, look, the CRM exists. The CRM is basically just an internal store of your team's process and data, right? Like that's all it is. Then, we're on this call right now when we're recording it. This is our context exchange. Like sales and emails and all, it's just context exchange. My CRM has this context, your email and your CRM has that context. We're exchanging it. There's really no place for us to work together, even though, as partners, as customers, as prospects, that's really what we're trying to do. So we think that space should exist, but nobody really knows that they want that. And so we're trying to build something that's so obviously useful and easy to get started with that once you feel it, you can't go back. And that's how our team feels using it. Like we can't go back to not having an Arrows sales room. And, if I went to, if you shut down Arrows, I would pay for Arrows myself if I was a sales rep somewhere else.
Yeah. So do you find that this product also would be sort of replacing or allowing it to, be easier to avoid having to build all this product kind of onboarding within your platform? Is this something that could be used to help customers onboard kind of across your platform, or is it really around that transactional of getting folks set up, getting teammates, administrative? How far do you go into the product experience?
We do very little in the product, and actually, so HubSpot is a customer. We power their onboarding program. They have 9,000 employees, 100 or so onboarding people. Like, why does somebody with their resources and their, engineering resources, design resources, a very self-serve product, they are investing a ton into in-app onboarding and making sure that's improved. They're still going to have an onboarding team that's helping guide people through the strategy, through how to think about HubSpot, how to use it most effectively. That's a 90-day, 120-day process. And most companies should be investing in something like Arrows alongside in-app, onboarding, easier to get started experiences. Now, companies often come to us early on and look at it as a replacement or hey, let's put resources here until we can, we'll paper over having a harder to onboard product with humans. That doesn't mean they won't invest in there later in the product and still need humans to help their customers think through everything. It's like sales isn't going to go away just because we make everything incredibly self-serve, right? We still want to talk to people. We want to consult with them. We want to get, guided outcomes. And we think that Arrows is the way you get that guided outcome.
Yeah. And is this something that maintains for the lifetime of the engagement, or is it intended to be for like a specific point in time? And maybe said another way, do you continue to engage with your customers through the sales room, like over a period of a year or 2 years?
We've built Arrows specifically where sales rooms and onboarding plans are like a separate product that really tightly integrates, and we call them customer portals where you group them. So a sales room's typically used just during the buying process, and you have an onboarding plan that usually is a start and end. Hey, we want to get you to this point, but they're all grouped and you can kind of go find them in this shared space. So as we continue building Arrows, it will be this thing where you get new onboarding plans or new sales rooms for different points in the life cycle. but they kind of each have their own purpose. They're their own space. They're not just like ever expanding.
Okay. So unlike maybe a shared Slack channel where you could just have back and forth, it's really around getting from point A to B and kind of passing through the finish line, so to speak, of your objective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But there's a world where these could be utilized for a success team, an upsell motion, a renewal, things of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. That's what HubSpot does. So there's a mid-market rep that will use Arrows as a sales room. They get handed off into an onboarding plan or a couple onboarding plans where they bought multiple products. The onboarding rep often even has a sales room alongside the onboarding process to share call recordings and everything else. And then, later the CSM will, create a sales room for, hey, a new player, new check-in, and there'll be multiple of them they can kind of go find. Yeah.
Now, I imagine you have quite a bit of data on how frequently, the buyers and the users use this tool. There's been some feedback among other people saying, I don't love having to get into another portal, but you probably have a pretty good sense how frequently buyers do. Do you have a sense as to how many times they perhaps revisit the tool over the period of kind of the onboarding? Is it something that happens daily? Is it multiple times a day? What does that typically look like?
I don't. That's a good question. We need to pull something out like that. We should probably do some benchmark data. It'd be good if you remember like OkCupid style data blogging, right? We should do that. The thing we see anecdotally, like in empirically, both ourselves and talking to reps, like sometimes they'll have people super active, right? People get in there, you'll see 5, 10 people, like a whole deal forms in. And you'll have other times where like nobody accesses the room, but you still win the deal. Mm-hmm. It is a signal, but like the same thing would be happening if you send an email after your first demo, your discovery, and you've got a bunch of links in there to, hey, here's our pricing, here's the call recording, here's the meeting booker. Like we're still hoping somebody interacts with those or shares them. So the tool being combined into one, all those things being in one space is valuable regardless. But also what we found ourselves and a lot of these reps, when I pull in my SE or my counterpart or my head of sales on a deal I'm managing, like the sales room becomes our source of truth for what's the status of this deal. And so it's like this useful thing to keep updated regardless of whether somebody's accessing it. And so, we'll see them, I think, get more used over time. But again, that's back to like a product thing where we want to figure out, okay, what's the thing that actually gets them used? Because sharing them as they are now is only slightly better than sending links into an email.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's go back. Let's revisit your time before Arrows. Let's go back. You started your career at Twilio, not to be confused with Twitter.
Or Twilio.
Is that right? As a product manager?
Yeah, I was hired right out of college. I didn't finish my last semester. I pursued Twilio pretty hard. I was an employee, I think 23. I cold emailed Jeff Lawson, the CEO, who's actually one of Arrow's angel investors now, which is something I'm very proud of because I learned a lot from him. I emailed him on a Sunday night, and I emailed 4 of his investors around the same time within 30 minutes of each other with like a custom built out resume and like a personal letter, I want to work here. And so within 30 minutes, he had an email from me and 2 of his investors, and the next morning, another one. And he's like, who the hell is this guy? But that's how I got in there.
Oh, that's amazing. And so you started, you were what, you 21, 22 years old?
21, right?
Okay. And you've got a pretty incredible story about landing a whale as not only as a sales rep, but as like probably the most junior person on the team. Tell us a little bit about this adventure, about working with Uber and kind of what perhaps you did differently that resulted in Twilio winning this deal.
One of the things I've always found really interesting about sales is, our VP of sales, I think was his title, always wanted me at Twilio to come over to the sales side, even though I was a product manager, because I was at a way with relationships and kind of knowing people. I knew the early Stripe, team and founders, and I knew some of their Uber people just from being around and social. And so one of the things I always found was like being a product manager or like a non-sales rep actually really benefited me in those scenarios, because really I would just know people and get to chatting with them about, solutions or product or things that we could do. And that was stuff that, my counterparties at those places, that's where their brains went. They weren't necessarily out buying. Uber wasn't buying, at least the people I was working with and kind of knew weren't out buying a new SMS tool, a new calling tool.
Yep.
So what happened was Uber was, I think, 12% of Twilio's revenue at IPO.
Wow.
In 2012, sometime, they launched in San Francisco in 2011, grew a lot 2011 and 12. I was a young guy in San Francisco, used Uber a ton, and had weird experiences where you text, the driver, I'm here, or you get a text when you get dropped off, and they're like, why'd you give me a 2-star review? And you're like, why are you texting my personal number? I didn't know that was possible. So there's these weird experiences. And as a solutions oriented, PM at a company where I knew that we could fix that,
Sure.
I reached out to the people I knew just through Twitter. Like, I don't even think we had met before. Said, hey, we should get coffee. Like, I had some weird experiences. And just getting together and jamming on the ideas created an opportunity to send them off to actually hack on that problem. And so ultimately, nobody at Twilio was thinking like, how do we go break into Uber? Maybe they were dreaming of it, but you wouldn't typically go, reach out to a PM or somebody or an engineer, and you wouldn't just say, hey, go build this. Like, we did a lot of hackathons, but that wasn't really like a targeted thing. But at the time, they were growing super well, and it's just one of those things. Like, GroupMe was a massive portion of the business, and a lot of these businesses started very small, and there were use cases that were small that became very giant over time. So really, it's this thing of like, you don't know what deals are going to be your whales at the start. Like, you could have never predicted Uber was going to be 12% of Twilio's business. So you kind of have to treat every customer with like hey, let's figure this out. Let's solve this problem together. Let's make sure you look great. And then if we grow well together and you grow really massively, you're going to, rely on us for a long time. So I think they looked at Twilio as a trusted partner because we were easy to work with.
Yeah. And so there was no relationship with Twilio prior to that. Is that right?
Maybe they had an account or something. They weren't really doing anything meaningful.
Not their primary provider.
Yeah, they had another SMS provider, which was like the thing. And then that traffic later moved because of this use case. More stuff moved over to Twilio because of the small use case.
Yeah. So did you know at the time that you were essentially conducting a masterclass in enterprise sales?
I think I knew that I was good at relationships and I was good at getting in the door, but I did not know that. And it's definitely why our VP of sales wanted me.
Yeah. And curious too, when you were interacting, do you recall how many different folks within the org were you ultimately kind of interfacing with at Uber to kind of turn this from a coffee chat into like real implementation?
Honestly, just 2 or 3, because they were a small company at that point. They were still very, very small, a few dozen people at most. And so, and they were the type of culture where an engineer could go build something and launch it. And Twilio was built, and this kind of gets back to company building. Twilio was built in a way where you can launch with a credit card, right? You sign up, you get $20 of credit, you put in a credit card and you can go live. And so they certainly probably went live with very few people, but they were enabled to go launch that within a few days. And then it became like a business decision. Let's go talk to Twilio, negotiate pricing. And that's when I was, kind of stepped out. The sales team took over.
That's very cool. Well, I have a very similar parallel story where we did a deal with Cloud Kitchens with a bunch of ex-Uber folks. And once again, also was easily 20% of total revenue of our Series C company. But that will be for another day. But similar type of deal, just working within the org and finding product managers who are listed as stealth on LinkedIn as their job and somehow finding a way to will our software into their ecosystem.
I mean, it's not dissimilar. Like HubSpot using arrows is not dissimilar. It's relationships over time, a demo here and there, building some trust, a random, conversation with the former chief customer officer. And he's like, Daniel, go solve my onboarding problem. And that's like the green light enough to go track down the 5 other people we need to, get a pilot going. And it really is just like, I think a thing where it just takes time and kind of building trust over months and years, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's a good transition. Let's dig in a little bit more about HubSpot. So what I find really interesting about your business is as of today, you are 100% focused on customers that use HubSpot. So you are entirely embracing the HubSpot ecosystem. We talked about this earlier, but this can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. It can be amazing because you can be the best product out there for HubSpot, but also can come with some challenges, limiting your scope or potentially competition from within. Why did you bet everything on HubSpot?
It kind of happened gradually and then became intentional, lucky in a way. So 3 years ago, just about, we decided to make a big change in the Arrows product. We built an onboarding tool. It had lightweight integrations with Salesforce and HubSpot. We felt something meaningfully had to change with the product. It needed to shift to be more CRM centric. People wanted the data from our tool, the workflows from our tool inside their CRM. So we said, okay, we should prove that with the product. How do we go learn about that as quickly as possible? Well, let's go pick one of the two CRMs, just focus obsessively on being great, the obvious choice in one, so we can learn that this is in fact the right choice for us as a product. Yep. So it was very product first. We chose HubSpot. We were a HubSpot customer. Yep. We knew that, startups like you probably use HubSpot. Yep. They make quicker decisions, they implement faster. We needed to learn that this was the right choice quickly. So we did that, launched in the ecosystem, went and talked to folks at HubSpot and some of the top apps that we had met over the years, the founders, and we're like, all right, what's great look like here? How do you go to market here? Yada, yada, yada. And we found out there was no playbook. There was a massive, amount of opportunity. They had 170,000 customers at the time, 250,000 now. If we focus more here, we can actually be one of the top dogs in HubSpot. Yep. And, if we go to Salesforce today, nobody will pay attention to us, and it's going to be a pretty big uphill battle. But if we really become a top 5, top 10 partner inside HubSpot, that can be, massively beneficial to us for years, defensible for years. Yep. And we can leverage that to get to Salesforce. So that was the reason at the time. Yeah.
Interesting. So did you find actually that quite a bit of your business came from being a top partner? Or are you achieving business through their app marketplace and whatnot?
Yeah. So, all businesses, HubSpot customers, but where does it come from? It's interesting. It's more of a strategy and positioning thing now than necessarily something where, provably and demonstrably, HubSpot as a platform is not that good yet at driving business to apps on their platform, right? It's not a discovery mechanism. The marketplace is fine. We have great installs and reviews there, but they're not driven by the marketplace. Yep. But by focusing on the platform, we have HubSpot's a customer. The executive team all knows us. They care about us. We're a strategic partner. We've got special access to a lot of programs, a lot of things, early access to APIs. It has unlocked a lot for us. And, it's been slower going in terms of we're in a great position as a business, but slower going than what we predicted given our status in the ecosystem. But we believe that if they figure that out, it'll be a massive unlock. And as we start building into other ecosystems, they have a massive solutions partner driven ecosystem. 50% of the revenue is driven by partners. Those are the same partners that build and do stuff on Salesforce. We know and work very closely with a lot of those partners. And a lot of that stuff, I think, would not be very possible if we had not focused so intensely on one platform.
Yeah. What do you think about on the flip side of the coin? What are some of the risks or potentially concerns?
Yeah, well, it's definitely harder to raise funding if we were trying to do that. Investors don't want to invest in a platform they don't yet believe in, and it's hard to get investors to invest in something that doesn't have proof points yet. We're very bullish on it, but it's just harder, factually harder. There's the competition aspect, right? HubSpot will probably at some point build something in sales rooms or onboarding. We've always taken the point, if you're building on a platform like this, if you're building on Salesforce or Shopify, you want them to compete with you at some point. It's actually an arbitrage. If you're not building something they want to compete in, it's probably not a big enough opportunity, for you. And so you're really trying to go as quickly as possible, as aggressively as possible, get market share before they decide it's big enough, before they can launch something. And that's really what would happen. So we look forward and 18, 24 months or whatever, they might launch something competitive with what we launched 2 years ago. And at that point, we'll be 2 years ahead and we'll be in Salesforce and we'll have a partner motion and other stuff. So it's not really risky to the business. It might be possibly risky to our ceiling, but generally we think if we've done a good job, it will only educate people in the market more.
I love that. Really well said. Do you turn down business today? If somebody came to you and they were using Salesforce, would you say, sorry, but you'll come back another day?
Yeah, we try to keep track, but even that we don't do so well. We definitely we have demand outside of HubSpot. Yeah. We very seldom, if somebody insists, will allow them to use Arrows without a CRM integration. But so much of the value is based on the depth of integration.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. So do obviously HubSpot has been investing quite a bit sort of in the space, in particular as it relates to, investing and rolling out AI forward kind of product management.
Yeah.
Post acquisition of Clearbit, they've been making a big push now for Breeze Intelligence. Do you see that kind of moving into your space at all? The idea of sort of summarization or, pulling insights from kind of your deal motion, things of that nature?
Yeah, we definitely think about it a lot. Like what they're trying to do with, Breeze Intelligence, their Copilot stuff. Like we're building a lot now using data from HubSpot, your meeting summaries, your call notes, your internal notes, your emails. We pull a lot of that in from your deals in HubSpot and do interesting stuff with it. And there's possibly a version of HubSpot offering APIs in a year that replicate some of the stuff we've built. We'll decide at that point, do we just lean on theirs and not? But like we need to kind of do it now either way, and we need to have an expertise around it. But at the same time, we need the same thing if we go plug directly into Gmail, go plug into Salesforce. So we're kind of like not really worried about the encroaching. The thing that's like interesting about HubSpot, there's 250,000 customers. Let's say 2/3 of those are Sales Hub customers. PandaDoc has tens of thousands of installs on HubSpot and a 9-figure business. Aircall is a 9-figure business and does incredibly well there. They have calling features, they have quoting features. Like they are not competitive to, their adoption of their own products are not across their entire platform. So even if they roll out something great, we know that we'll have a different point of view. We can build faster, we can build more completely, and we can kind of do things that don't rely on just what HubSpot can do in their existing model.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what does your go-to-market motion look like today? I know obviously you're part of the partner ecosystem. You lean heavily into that from like a strategy and messaging perspective, but tell me a little bit about your team's go-to-market motion.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think we've always done for 3 years now in HubSpot is very content heavy, very educational heavy. So, HubSpot's known for SEO and content, right? But it's very like, it's search content. It's not like high value. But what you can't find very easily is, how do I do XYZ in HubSpot? How do I run customer success in HubSpot? How do I do a sales handoff in HubSpot? How do I build this report? So we've actually gotten a lot of traction over the years with, deep dive content that people like rely on. And what we've often ended up kind of done, HubSpot has 9,000 employees, as I said, but 3,000 of those are customer facing, sales and CS, right? Those people, and then the 7,000 or 8,000 solutions partners, the agencies that resell 50% of HubSpot's revenue, they're in many ways the channel for the content. So a lot of HubSpot CSMs actually share our content with their customers. And so we want to be like in that flow of demand because like I said before, a lot of people aren't in market searching for an onboarding tool, definitely not in market searching for a sales room tool, not to the degree that we want them to. We want them to still discover us there and they'll find us in the HubSpot community or YouTube or whatever. But when they're like, hey, how do I do XYZ? They're like, oh, go look at this partner. How do I run an onboarding process in HubSpot? They're not looking for a collaborative onboarding tool, but they're like, how do I set up the onboarding pipeline? And then they're like, oh, this thing would be awesome to plug into that. And so they generally are finding us through content. And then that's created the referral mechanism, the solutions partner, kind of relationships that now are driving business directly. And then ultimately HubSpot using us is driving some business as well.
Yeah. And is the content, would you say it's sales room adjacent? Is it just in general trying to be as helpful as you can related to HubSpot? Or you just, how do you think through that content? I'm sure you have a varying degree of it, but how much of it kind of overlaps with what your core business is?
We try to make sure it overlaps pretty closely to the core business, right? Like we're not writing stuff for marketing teams in HubSpot or anything like that. It's got to be sales topics or onboarding customer success topics, generally related to things that Arrows does that you would try to do alongside Arrows. But we think about where's their existing demand, like where is there an existing Reddit or community, HubSpot community thread about a topic for which Arrows would be a good fit. And can we create content to that solves that question, not coming in sideways and saying, oh, use Arrows for this. Let's just solve their question directly. And then Arrows happens to be, kind of like Ahrefs, the SEO tool. We just happen to kind of insert it as an example for how you solve it, but it's not the full answer.
Okay. So that, that ties nicely back to you have a lot of messaging maybe on your personal brand or about the company itself in your about section about happy customers, and that's kind of what drives you and motivates you on a daily basis. And it sounds like you generally are trying to make content that will help people achieve their goals, be happy. So kind of your content marketing machine is very reflective of your goals as kind of a leader and a builder. Talk to me a little bit about what these keys are to happy customers. You've probably seen a lot change over the last 5 years. Like, how do you view happiness when it comes to software customers?
We even, our shirts, we have like hundreds of them out there. A couple hundred HubSpot employees have them. They say, "I love happy customers." You know, it's like, who's not going to wear a shirt that says "I love happy customers"? Nobody gives a shit about an Arrows t-shirt. Maybe some people do, but not enough. Way more people care about "I love happy customers." Really, that line comes back to, you know, nobody's going to say they don't want happy customers. Like, everybody wants happy customers. It's just an easy thing. Sure, we can debate successful, yada, yada, yada. But like, to us, happy is like the ultimate manifestation of, I am just like so thrilled to be associated with this product and this brand, and it's making me successful. For us, that is like all down to, I clearly know what I'm using this for. I'm clearly getting results from it. I'm getting results very quickly. The people are easy to work with. I don't feel locked into something. We have companies coming to us all the time that go to a competitor who get locked into an annual contract, and we're like missold something it couldn't do. We never want to be in the business of doing that sort of thing. So if somebody comes to us and it's not working, they think it's different, or their business changed 2 months in, we're not going to lock them in on that. We'll give them a partial or full refund. We let people pay and start monthly. We want to be easy to work with, and then make all of that be in service of ultimately getting people to be happy and successful. And if they associate or attribute some of that to working with us, whether that's the people or the product, we think that's really, really critical.
Yeah, I love that. I do have one more funky question for you. Your domain is a .to. What's the backstory?
So we bought the domain fall 2018. Arrows came because I like naming stuff, and I'm a big Formula One fan, and was like looking for names, in a lot of different places, but looking for inspiration around Formula One, different terms or things. We weren't even building an onboarding tool at that point, but it was in go-to-market world, kind of process oriented. And I came across an old team name called Arrows. I actually have, you can buy a bunch of old Arrows swag off of eBay. So I have a bunch of Arrows F1 team stuff over here in the corner. And I was like, that's great, because it's, it's like in motion, it's a little bit off, it's plural. You don't see a lot of names for companies or products that are plural. That's really interesting. So there's a uniqueness to it. So we really like the name, and then you start trying to get a short domain, and we didn't want get arrows.com or try arrows. We have those, but we didn't want that to be the main domain. And so we looked for things. At the time, Notion wasn't .com, Notion was .so.
Yep.
And we were like, oh, interesting. Let's look at .so. Let's look at, and we found .to, which is from Tonga. And yeah, ultimately bought that. And we kind of liked that there was a motion to it also, like arrows.to. We say .to, but it's kind of like there's a motionality to it also. So it's stuck. And now the challenge is that the .com is, it's always been owned by a dating website, and they've put a fake thing up there, I think, to make it seem like it's more in use than it is.
Have you attempted to acquire it?
Not meaningfully. At some point, we'll either be profitable enough or raise enough that we go do it and just figure it out. But
well, who knows? Maybe somebody that will listen to this will be a domain broker out there who can help make that match and happiness happen.
Yeah.
Terrific. Daniel, where can people follow your work? LinkedIn, Twitter, what's your go-to?
LinkedIn for work stuff generally. I'm a big Twitter fan for like 18 years, but I probably post a lot less there now. At Daniel Zarick on Twitter, and then you can find me the same on LinkedIn. I'm definitely more active there now.
Amazing. Awesome, Daniel. That's it for Knocking to 10. If you like this conversation, drop us a follow and check out Knock2.ai if you're looking to turn your anonymous website traffic into pipeline. Daniel, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, John.